of the research work that we are doing. So my name is Ritu Gupta, and I am faculty at Department of Chemistry at IIT Jodhpur. So Jodhpur is a very nice city in Rajasthan, and it is surrounded by various other educational institutes with which we can collaborate. And it's a capital city of Rajasthan. So now going to the work that we are doing, it's on fluorinated nanomaterials for energy and healthcare applications. So we take the material and look at the possibilities of fluorinating it in different ways for taking it to energy and sensing applications. So in this particular talk, I will be taking few examples of different systems of materials like Fe2O3 and SnO2, which we have used and studied in detail for these applications. So the overall work is about developing an approach which is related to electrophilic fluorination using this precursor molecule which has never been studied before for inorganic systems. So this is quite known for organic systems where fluorinating is must. However, it was not applied before to any inorganic system, and we explored how it will be for inorganic materials like graphene or graphite or any oxides or 2D materials. So we looked into in-depth fluorination mechanism, the structural changes it brings, and all the electrical and electrochemical properties that lead to its application in energy devices and sensors. And this work is majorly done and published in various journals by my student Gaurav. So here, if I give a brief introduction on how fluorination is done in various systems, there are two major approaches that usually people adopt. One is the nucleophilic precursors, which we are all familiar with, like agents like HF, ammonium fluoride, sodium fluoride. So there are various precursors which are available for solution processing of fluorination. However, there are certain limitations. Whereas on the other hand, we have radical-based precursors which are highly aggressive and quite reactive. For example, fluorine gas directly itself, or SF4, or various other precursors, xenon fluoride and all. So they require highly sophisticated instrumentation or special handling for dealing with these kind of reactive precursors. So we have looked into the approach of electrophilic fluorinating agents, which can give F plus species in solution. Usually, nucleophilic gives F minus, which is a nucleophile, but here we are looking at F plus species in solution. And so that for that we have used Select Fluor, which is commercially available reagent and it is easily can be used in the form of a powder, and it doesn't require very special handling. So first, here I'm presenting the case of Fe2O3, which is a very well-known material for various applications like photoelectrochemical studies or magnetic properties and so on. So here we looked at the fluorinating it with different amount of precursor. We use the same precursor, which is abbreviated as FTEDA, and also compared the fluorination with other fluorinating agents like HF, TBABF4, sodium fluoride, ammonium fluoride. And surprisingly, in literature, we came across that fluorinating these kind of systems is not so easy. And if we look at the fluorine content, which is present by making use of these different precursors, this is the atomic weight percent, and the fluorine is represented here by the black bar. It is almost negligible. Whereas FTEDA was able to induce fluorination, and it was maximum when we use a precursor ratio of around 30%, and beyond that, it again decreases. So there was no fluorination detected by other precursors, and this also had an effect on magnetic properties. So, Fe2O3 on its own is antiferromagnetic in nature, so we don't expect a huge magnetization. And even after fluorinating with all these precursors, we did not observe any change in the magnetization. But with FTEDA, particularly this precursor which I'm mentioning about, it showed a big change in the magnetization, and the curve resembled almost like that of a ferromagnetic material. So here we looked at again the different percentages of fluorine, that what would give the maximum magnetization, and we found that it is related to amount of fluorine that has gone into. So 30% of the precursor ratio showed the maximum magnetization, and also which is related with the fluorine weight percentage. So maximum is 30%, and that is what is giving rise to maximum saturation magnetization here. And this we could attribute to the surface spins which are contributed by fluorine functionalization on the surface taking place. And then we used it for photoelectrochemical measurements because it's a very well studied material, and there also we see increment in the photocurrent, particularly here as well as here. So all these graphs shows the increment in the photocurrent, and which is maximum for the 30% sample as compared to the rest. So this was one study. Now I am taking you to the another example of SNO2, where we were trying to understand how is the mechanism of fluorination and how it actually takes place. So we took case of SNO2 because we were interested in making sensors and various other applications. So SNO2 is also a very good electron transport layer, so fluorinating it would increase its electron transport behavior. That's why we were interested in studying this particular system in detail. So here, to start with, we have a SNO2 film, and once we fluorinate it, then the fluorinating precursor can interact with the surface in different ways. It can remain on the surface, or whether it performs a bulk fluorination. To study those things, we looked into XPS. So there are two possibilities here, that there are two types of vacancies. One is called interstitial vacancy, and the other is substitutional vacancy. So fluorine can go into both. So we were interested in studying that what actually contributes and what happens with this particular precursor. What we found is that this precursor dissociates here with the fluorine atom is able to dissociate, and it undergoes it diffuses inside the SNO2 matrix, while the remnant molecule remains on the surface. And this is visible in the XPS studies, where nitrogen peak, this is nitrogen XPS, and this is the bond corresponding to NF, which is present here. So this peak was present in the precursor, and this now disappears after fluorination on the fluorinated SNO2 surface. And when we do H depth analysis, we do a depth analysis by etching it repeatedly over time, and we see that the nitrogen concentration falls off exponentially, while fluorine concentration is linear. Now we try to analyze the amount of fluorine which is getting into the SNO2 uh, by a depth by looking at the various profiles. And here we could deconvolute it into two peaks, which I mentioned as substitutional and interstitial. And here we can see that at the H depth of around 60 nanometer, it is only the substitutional fluorine which remains, and also the diffusion length of the substitutional fluorine is much higher as compared to the interstitial fluorine. So, which is also important, particularly for any device application. Most interesting results of this whole study was the changes in the electrical performance. We observed a very big change in the resistance, and there was no other method established by chemical or solution processing. There are physical methods for doing fluorination of tin oxide, and it's a very well studied system. People use it in all optoelectronic devices. So whatever screen or mobile phones we use, they all have a coating of fluorinated tin oxide, and usually those are prepared by physical methods. And there we observe this kind of resistance changes. However, there was no chemical or solution process method, and there we could see that we could develop the recipe in such a way that we could get a two-order decrease increase in the conductivity, and that is quite amazing. And it is because the surface fluorine increases the concentration on the surface and reduces the resistance, the trap states, resulting in a good conducting behavior. And these are all impedance data. I'm not going into too many details, but overall it shows that there is ultra fast relaxation that takes place on the surface for the electron charge carriers, and also the activation energy is quite lowered for these surfaces. So this led to the development of a design concept for making transparent display-based gas or VOC sensors. So usually all the sensors are point sensors. Here we propose to make a display-based sensors which are there present in the ambient. and making use of the light, we can regenerate the surface quite rapidly. Usually, all the oxides like tin oxide or any other, tin oxide is a very well studied material for VOC or gas detection system. Even it is used in commercial sensors. However, it faces a problem that once it detects a certain gas, it is not able to regenerate itself and go to its initial state. So it takes a lot of time to get back to its initial state. Here we are able to regenerate it by giving a UV pulse. And why fluorinated tin oxide for this case? Because we observe that there is a reduction in the persistent photoconductivity for the fluorinated system as compared to the tin oxide. And that is related to how the electron charge carriers are on the surface of tin oxide because of fluorination. Usually in sensors, another big challenge is to reduce the operation time of the sensors, so operation temperature of the sensors. Most of these SNO2 or oxide-based sensors are operated at 300 or 350 degrees Celsius. So here we could bring down the temperature to 150 while having a similar gas response. So here is a comparative data. So where 280 degrees Celsius is what is usually used, and this is showing a response of the gas, and the sensor comes back to its initial position. But this here the temperature is 280. Now we wanted to reduce the temperature. When we use 150, the sensor doesn't come back because of various factors. However, if we give a UV pulse, we are able to bring it back down to its initial position, and that is the advantage which we got with fluorinated tin oxide system. The same example is illustrated with another example here, where there is a gas on sensor goes to its high state, and then UV pulse is given to regenerate the sensor, and then the sensor is able to come back to its initial position. So here you can also see the gas response for different gases, and the sensitivity is related to the electron donating tendency of these molecules, which is also one of the interesting results. Then I will take a third example, which is related to fluorinated carbon and also using the fluorinating precursor directly as an electrolyte in supercapacitors. So when we use it directly as an electrolyte, we mix it with conventional electrolyte and try to see if it can show a superior behavior because of this F plus species in the solution. So we observe that there is an increase in the specific capacitance, improvement in the curve shape, and overall improvement in the devices. But more interestingly, we also observe that the electrolyte becomes very sensitive to the water content or the moisture content. So there is an increase in the conductivity of the electrolyte when a significant amount of water is intentionally introduced into the system, while the conventional electrolyte has no effect when a small quantity of water is interacting with the system. So this led to the development of a uh, moisture sensitive behavior in supercapacitors, and it led to the development of humidity sensors, which I will be briefly explaining in few slides. At the same time, we also observed that the carbon, which is used as an electrode for making these supercapacitors, they also get fluorinated and start showing a better behavior. You can see the drastic improvement by the incorporation of fluorine on the carbon matrix. This not only changes its surface properties, bring hydrophilicity, and various other parameters are improved, which results in an overall improvement in the performance. So now this is the last example, which I am talking about the precursor directly. So here FTIDA precursor, which was used as a fluorinating agent in all the previous studies that I discussed, is used in the crystallized form in its own native form. It is crystallized on a surface. So we study the crystallization process by taking it in different solvent and making different concentration, and we could see that it can form 1D fibers type structure, which can be directly put on a device, interdigitated device, to make a humidity sensor. So most important thing about sensors is that it should have high specificity. So if it is for humidity, it should only interact with humidity and nothing else. So here we can see that there is a humidity response, and then after that, sensor is exposed to various polar, non-polar, and gaseous molecules. There is no response. And then again, the sensor is exposed to humidity, there is a response which indicates very high specificity. And then sensitivity values also is at par, which is of the order of 10 to the power 4. And after development, we have reached up to 10 to the power 6. And the response and recovery is also quite fast, which is very important for certain applications. For example, in terms of application, we can think about touchless examination of skin. If a finger is brought in close proximity to the sensor, there is a variation in the humidity levels in the close proximity of the crystals, and because of which the sensor starts giving different currents. So here is a plot of current versus time, and on the top there is a finger height. So as the finger height is changing, as the finger is receding away from the sensor, there is a decrease in the response because of the changes in the humidity level. And the same was tested with fingers from different volunteers. That taking a different volunteer, because everyone has different humidity content, we could see a differential response. And the finger with the glove showed no response because there is no humidity, and this is a control to the measurements. And we can also use this sensor for healthcare as a healthcare device for monitoring the physiological movements of a patient. So, for example, if a patient is breathing at different rates, like slow breathing or moderately fast breathing or very fast breathing, we can get a signal for all these kind of breathing profiles and detect a wide breathing range of 9 to 95 breaths per minute, which is shown here. And this is important for even different aged classes of people to monitor their breath, especially when we are wearing masks all the time. So, with this, I will conclude my talk. So, here we have developed a method using electrophilic fluorinating agent as a precursor, and we also optimized the fluorine content. We got very low resistivity without sacrificing the transparency. That was one of the important things because we wanted it to retain the transparency so that it can be used in any optoelectronic devices. And then for tin oxide, persistent conductivity was reduced that enabled fabrication of sensor at 150 degrees Celsius. And then humidity sensor was also demonstrated for breath rate monitoring at touch sensing. I'm trying to develop it further, and we have connected it to Arduino to make it a portable device. Thank you, and I'm open to any questions. So I will acknowledge my institute, IIT Jodhpur, for providing all the facilities and a place to work, and my mentors and collaborators, also students and funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Gupta, for giving us a nice overview of the importance of fluorinated materials in device applications. I see there's one question from SV Bhatt. He asked, what is the mechanism by which the magnetization of Fe2O3 increases on fluorination?
So, magnetization, we attribute it to the surface spins, uncompensated surface spins on the surface because it's a surface fluorination. The bulk, if we look at the XRD data, we found that it is still antiferromagnetic in nature. It doesn't change the crystalline structure. So, it is only the surface fluorine that is contributing to the magnetization. That is what it is related to.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions. So let me thank you once again for that excellent talk.